Sisters, make sure your head is covered. Cell phones off or in the silent position. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand and face Jerusalem, and we'll open up.
Have that young man take his hat off.
Okay, we got a brother with a hat on?
Yeah, he just took it off.
Okay, good. Okay.
The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness.
The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness.
According to the cleanness of my hands have he recompensed me.
According to the cleanliness of my hands have he recompensed me.
For I have kept the ways of the Lord.
For I have kept the ways of the Lord.
And have not wickedly departed from my God.
And have not wickedly departed from my God.
For all his judgments were before me.
For all his judgments were before me.
And I did not put away his statutes from me.
And I did not put away his statutes from me.
I was also upright before him.
I was also upright before him.
And I kept myself from mine iniquity.
And I kept myself from mine iniquities.
Therefore hath the Lord recompensed me according to my righteousness.
Therefore hath the Lord recompensed me according to my righteousness.
According to the cleanness of my hands in his eyesight.
According to the cleanliness of my hands in his eyesight.
Our scripture reading came from Psalms, the 18th chapter, verses 20 through 24. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading of his word. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I'd like to say good evening to everyone.
Good evening, Brother Andrew.
And I'd like to welcome you all out to the Israel of God's Wednesday night question and answer session. Normally, this is the session where you'll get a chance to ask your questions concerning anything you've heard, read, or just need further edification on out of the Bible. But tonight, we're going to deviate from our normal question and answer format to bring you this Black History presentation of when we were kings. This lesson is going to show you our history like you've never seen it before. And we're going to highlight and answer a lot of questions that has been asked that nobody has ever given us the answer to. And I got a lot of material to present to you. And I'm just going to ask you guys to sit back and relax. We're going to have some information presented on the screens. That's why we have the screens up, that you will be able to follow every bit of information that I'm going to divulge to you this evening. So we're going to start this off in Isaiah, the first chapter. We're going to start this lesson off in Isaiah, the first chapter. Check 1, 2. What's happening in my mic, Billy? Okay. Isaiah, the first chapter. And the thing that I want to let you guys realize is that this is our history that we're going to be dealing with tonight. And the amazing thing about what we're going to learn tonight is that this information is contained in the Bible. This information has been with us all the time. But the reason why we haven't been able to see it is because not only our so-called spiritual leaders, but we ourselves have become spiritually blinded. The Lord talks about people having eyes to see, but see not, ears to hear, but hear not. He is not talking about physical blind and deaf people. He's talking about spiritually blind and deaf people. As we rebelled against God and got further and further away from our God, our spiritual sight started to dim.
Yes, sir.
Our spiritual ear started to go deaf. And the only thing that we look at is things worldly, things fleshly, and things carnally. And when it comes down to the word of God, we hear it and it just go past us. It go in one ear and it go out the other. I hear people all the time say, there is no God. And I ask them, why do you say that? Because if there was a God, the world wouldn't be in the shape that it's in now. He wouldn't allow that to happen. When it comes down to us as a people, if there was a God, why is he letting this happen to us? And I tell them all the time that the fact that the world is in the shape that it's in, and the fact that what we're going through as a people is happening to us, that's the proof right there that there is a God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because God told you a long time ago that this was going to happen. And it's happening just like he said. But because we don't know it, we don't see it, we don't understand it. But tonight, hopefully, we will get a good understanding of our God, of ourselves as a people, and we will know more about us than we've ever known before. So once again, we're going to start this off in Isaiah, the 1st chapter, and we're going to pick it up at verse 2. Isaiah 1 and verse 2. All right, my brother, go ahead.
Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for the Lord hath spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me.
You see what the Lord is doing? He's calling for the heaven and the earth to hear what he got to say. I have raised up children, and they have rebelled against me. Go ahead.
The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel doeth not know, my people doeth not consider.
The ox, a beast of burden, he know his owner. An ass, a donkey, another beast of burden, he know his master's crib. But my people Israel, we don't know who our master is. We don't know where our house is. And as a matter of fact, we don't even consider. We just take it for granted that this is where we're supposed to be. Go ahead on and read.
Ah, a sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are going away backward.
So look what the Lord called us. He called us a sinful nation. He called us a people laden with iniquity. Iniquity is another word for sin, right? He said a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. So God, the true and living God, is mad at us. We have provoked him to anger. And one thing that you must understand is that God still runs it.
Yes, sir.
When the Lord set up the first Gentile ruler, Nebuchadnezzar, he had to let him know that God reigneth in the kingdom of men. And he setteth over it the basest of men. So whoever is in charge, they there because that's who the Lord saw fit to put there. You see man, but God is behind the scene running this thing. So because of our rebellion and our iniquity and our corruption towards him, he's angry with us. Skip down to verse 7 and go ahead.
Your country is desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. Your land strangers devour in your presence, and is desolate as overthrown by strangers.
You see what he's talking about? Our homeland, our country is desolate. Our cities are burned, he said, with fire. Your land strangers devour it in your presence. How is it that strangers is devouring our homeland in our presence? Well, you got this modern device called television. And they show you the news from all over the world, right? And you see the so-called Israelis and the Palestinians over there in the land of Israel fighting each other. Hezbollah against Edom, and the Lebanese against Edom, the Egyptians down there in the Gaza Strip against Edom. All the war and bombings that's going over there, that's in our house. And we watching it. And sometimes we'll wish that maybe the Arabs might win. Then sometimes we might miss that maybe the so-called Jews might win. And here we are over here in our strangers' land, thinking that we at home, thinking that we are free. But the book say, strangers devour your land in your presence. It is desolate, it is overthrown by strangers. Go ahead to verse 8.
And the daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodge in the garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city.
And the daughter of Zion is none other than Jerusalem. It's a city that's just like in a garden of cucumbers. If you ever know how cucumbers grow, they grow up on a vine and they surround everything around it. And this is how Jerusalem is right now. Everybody is there surrounding Jerusalem, choking the life out of her, and we're at home watching this thing, and we don't even consider what's going on. Verse 9, go ahead.
Except the Lord of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah. Hear the word of the Lord, ye rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law. Give ear unto the law of our God, ye people of Gomorrah.
So the Lord said, except the Lord of hosts had left us a very small remnant. A remnant is a part of a whole, right? And compared to the modern day Christians or the people who accept religion as the status quo, we are a small number. And we are going against the status quo. And except it had been for people like us who deal with the book the way it is written, we would have been like Sodom and Gomorrah. And Sodom and Gomorrah is a destroyed city, uninhabited. So now, we're going to go to our first slide up on the screen. And we got some information right here. So my guys in the control room, if you can give me that second slide. Up here on the board, you will see that in the year 1619, that's the year that the first slaves arrived in Virginia, arrived in America, in the state of Virginia, in the city of Jamestown. That's when we first came over here, 1619. 2016 is the present year. That's the year that we're in now, right? So if you take our present year, 2016, and you subtract it from 1619, that will equal 397 years. We have been in America this year 397 years. And this is as far back as we have been taught our history, 397 years. And it is a history consisting of slavery, oppression, and inequality. 397 years of it, right? That's like being a baby almost compared to the rest of the world. The rest of the world go back to ancient history. They go back to the BC days and everything like that. So all of a sudden, we pop up on the scene 397 years ago. So what we want to find out is who were we and what was life like for us before the shores of America. And this is what we're going to find out tonight. So we're going to go right now to Genesis, the 25th chapter, because we're going to walk this thing down from the beginning and we're going to take it to the end. And we're going to understand who we are as a people, what we did to get ourselves in the position that we're in. And now, with this understanding, we'll be able to endure. Because the book tells us that he who endure until the end, the same shall be saved.
Yes, sir.
You got people right now under modern Christianity talking about they saved already. And you ask them, saved from what? They can't give you no answer. So what we have to be saved from is sin. Because the wages of sin is death. And the book has concluded all of us under sin and fallen short of the glory of God. So Genesis, the 25th chapter, and this is our beginning. Genesis 25 and verse 19. Genesis 25 and 19. All right, my brother, go ahead.
And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac.
Now, these are the generations of Isaac, which is Abraham's son. Abraham come of the lineage of Shem. After the flood, the Lord destroyed the whole earth except for 8 people. Noah, his wife, Noah's 3 sons and their wives. And the Bible will tell you that of these 3 sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the whole world was repopulated on this side of the flood. Abraham is the patriarch of our family, and he come out of Noah's son Shem. The people that we refer to as Africans, they come out of Ham. We did not come out of Ham. We are not Africans, no, even though we lived in the land of Ham, and we're going to explain that to you. But we are Semitic, and these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac. Go ahead on and read.
And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padanaram, the sister to Laban the Syrian. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived.
So Isaac went and prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because his wife was barren. She couldn't have no children. And the Lord heard Isaac's prayer, and he blessed Rebekah to be able to have children. Go ahead on and read.
And the children struggled together within her, And she said, If it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord.
Now look at what we got going on here. You got people actually communing with the true and living God in these days. You got a man and his wife who can't have no children. He go and pray directly to the Lord. The Lord hears his prayer and blesses his wife to be able to conceive. She conceive and have children, but they fighting in her womb. And she said, if this is a blessing from the Lord, why is it thus? So she went to ask the Lord. And this is what the Lord told her. Go ahead on and read.
And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger.
So this is why they're struggling in your womb, because you got 2 children in your womb. And these children are going to grow up to represent 2 separate nations. One people are going to be stronger than the other, and the child that is born first, he is going to serve the child that is born last. The elder is going to serve the younger. Go ahead on and read.
And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb.
So she got twins in her womb. That's 2 babies, right? Now we have 2 sets of twins, 2 different types of twins. You have an identical twin that is produced from 1 egg that is split. And now both babies look alike. That's identical. But then you have what is called fraternal twins, where you actually have 2 separate eggs. So now you got 2 babies, but they don't necessarily look alike. In this case, we have fraternal twins here. Go ahead on and read.
And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau.
Esau was the firstborn of Isaac. And the prophecy of these children was that the elder is going to have to serve the younger. And the first came out red and hairy all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. Esau is the people that the world accepts as Jews now. You done seen these people. They look like Caucasians or they look like white folks, right? But the difference between them and white folks, they got a broader nose, they got kinkier hair, they have brown eyes instead of blue eyes, and they red. Go ahead on and read.
And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 60 years old when she bare them.
So the second child that came out was Jacob. Jacob is our father. And when he came out of the womb, he came out holding on to Esau's heel. Why? Because they was fighting in the womb. Esau come down the birth canal to be delivered, and Jacob was like, no, you ain't getting away from him, mister. And he got a hold on him coming out of the womb. And the elder is going to serve the younger, and his name was called Jacob. So by right, we are the children of Jacob, and we should be referred to as Jacobites. Okay? But go ahead on and read.
And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents.
So this is the different characteristics of the 2 boys. Esau was a hunter. He went out there in the woods, shooting animals and whatnot. Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tent. He was like a farmer. Go ahead on and read.
And Isaac loved Esau, because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob.
Jacob, our father, was mama's boy. Mama loved him. But daddy loved Esau because he used to eat that good meat that he'd go out there and kill. Go ahead on and read.
And Jacob sighed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint.
Jacob always got him something to eat. He just got to go out there to his garden, pick his vegetables. He got him something to eat. Esau out in the field all day long, probably hot outside, ain't killed nothing. Hungry, tired, to the point that he about to pass out. Go ahead on and read.
And Esau said to Jacob, Feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom.
So Jacob is making some kind of stew with a red base on it, right? And Esau is asking Jacob for some of his food. And the food was red, therefore Esau is referred to Edom. So when you see Edom or Esau, we talked about the same person here. Go ahead on and read.
And Jacob said, Sell me this day thy birthright.
Now, Jacob, our father, is dealing with his brother Esau right here. Esau wants some of Jacob's food. Jacob said, I ain't got no problem with that, but it's going to come to you at a price. Sell me this day your birthright. A birthright is the inheritance. The oldest son gets all of the possessions of the father upon death. That's the birthright. So when Isaac died, everything that Isaac owns would go to Jacob. Go to Esau. But Jacob's sitting back here saying, hey, listen, you want some of my food? I tell you what you do. This day, swear to me that when Dad die, I get the birthright instead of you. What did Esau do? Go ahead.
And Jacob said, swear to me this day, and he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob.
Read that 12th verse, because we skipped verse 12.
12.
Well, the 32,
Okay,
I'm sorry. I done wrote so much in my book, it looked like a 12. Verse 32. Read verse 32.
And Esau said, behold, I am at the point to die. And what prophet said this birthright do to me?
So Esau is about to die, because he's hungry, right? Belly get tight, he think he ain't gonna live. He say, I'm at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me? Go ahead.
And Jacob said, swear to me this day, and he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob.
And he sold his birthright unto our father, right? Go ahead on and read.
Then Jacob gave Esau bread and potters of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright.
The book say Esau despised his birthright. If you read in Hebrews, the book say Esau didn't think no more of his birthright than a morsel of bread. So therefore, Jacob get the inheritance. So whatever Abraham gave to Isaac, when Isaac died, it's going to go down to Jacob now. Now let's turn over to the 35th chapter of Genesis. Genesis chapter 35. Let's see, our father started off being slick. Got the birthright from his brother. See, when they call us, when they brought us over here, they used to refer to Africa as the dark continent. And we are the people of the dark continent. And they told us that when they brought us over here, that we was uneducated, savages, and then they're almost like they did us a favor when they brought us over here. But this don't sound too stupid to me, do it? Our father bartering right here for something that is very precious. Genesis 35, we're going to pick it up at verse 9. Genesis 35 and 9. All right, my brother, go ahead.
And God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padanaram and blessed him. And God said unto him, thy name is Jacob.
Now pay attention to what's going on here. God, the true and living God, is talking to people in these days. And he's talking to our father, Jacob. And God, when Jacob came out of the area of Padanaram, God appeared unto him and said unto him, thy name is Jacob. Go ahead and read.
Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. And he called his name Israel.
So our father's name was changed from Jacob to Israel by God. This ain't something that he did on his own. God gave us the name of Israel. This is how we come to be Israelites.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead on and read.
And God said unto him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins.
So God said unto our father, be fruitful and multiply, and a nation and a company of nations shall come of thee, and kings shall come out of your loins, right? Skip down to verse 23, and let's look at these nations and company of nations that's going to come out of Jacob. Verse 23. All right, my brother, go ahead.
The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Zebulun.
Because Jacob had two wives. He was married to a woman named Leah. He was married to a woman named Rachel. Leah, in these days, had servants. She had a handmaid that waited on her. And our father had some children by his wife's handmaid, and he had children by his second wife's handmaids. So Jacob had children by 4 different women. And the first one, Leah, gave him Reuben, Simeon, and Levi. Go ahead.
Judah and Issachar and Zebulun.
So those are the children that was born of Leah. Go ahead on.
The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin.
Rachel was his second wife, Joseph and Benjamin. Go ahead.
And the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid.
Now this is Rachel's handmaid, Bilhah. She gave him who?
Dan and Naphtali.
Go ahead.
And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Padanaram.
This is 12 sons that was born to him in Padanaram. So now we got another slide. Then we're going to show you what we just read, and we're going to put some time on this here. Let us have our next slide. Jacob has his first son in 1760 BC, which would have been Reuben. And he had his last son in 1732 BC, which would have been Benjamin. He had 12 sons and one daughter in a period of 28 years. Now, if you take our present year, 2016, and when you're dealing with the BC, you have to add it. So 2016 plus 1732 BC, which is the year of his last child, that gives you 3,748 years. 3,748 years from this present year, the fathers of the 12 tribes of Israel were in place. This is how old we are as a people. We only been in America for 397, and that's all we know. But where's all of this other time that we losing? We're almost losing 3,000 years of history that has never been told to us. Now, one of the children, Joseph, we're going to show you something about him. Let us have our next slide. One of Jacob's children, Joseph. Joseph was born in 1745 BC. He was sold into slavery by his brothers and the Midianites to the Egyptians in 1729 BC at the age of 16 years old. You've heard of Joseph and the multicolored coat, right? Joseph, the Lord blessed him to be able to dream dreams, which was actually being able to prophesy of things to come. And Joseph was close to his father, and Joseph's brothers was jealous of him because he was like his father's favorite. Plus, he would always tell on his brothers. So they wanted to kill him. But instead of killing him, they sold him to the Midianites. The Midianites, in turn, took him down to Egypt and sold him to the Egyptians. And he was 16 years old when that happened. While he was in Egypt, he was made a ruler in Egypt in the year 1715 BC at the age of 30 years old. All of this is recorded in the Bible. We ain't got time to read it here tonight, but you can go back and read this on your own. He was made a ruler in Egypt at 30 years old, which is in line with the prophecy, because the Lord was using Joseph unbeknown to Joseph. But you can't come into the service of the Lord being a male unless you're 30 years old. And he didn't even come to be a ruler in Egypt until 30 years old. You can find that information in the book of Numbers. So now, when you take our present year, which is 2016 AD, and you're dealing with the BC, you got to add them again. That equals 3,731 years ago. 3,731 years ago, one of our forefathers became the second ruler in Egypt, only to Pharaoh.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to show you that in Psalms, the 5th chapter. Psalms 105. Psalms, the 105th chapter. And when we get there, we're going to pick it up at verse 17. Psalms 105 and verse 17. All right, my brother, go ahead.
He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant.
This is the plan of God. Like I said when we was opening up, God reigned in the kingdom of men. And his brothers thought that they was being evil against their brother. But they don't know that the God had a plan for them. He sent, the book say, a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant because they sold him into slavery. But that's part of the plan of God there. Go ahead on and read.
Whose feet they hurt with fetters, he was laid in iron.
This is what they do to slaves. They put them in chains and irons. So when we come into this chattel slavery over here in America, that wasn't the first time they did that to us. They did that to our forefather Joseph over 3,000 years ago. And he was sold to the Egyptians. Go ahead on and read.
Until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord tried him. The king sent and loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free. He made him lord of his house and ruler of all his substance.
Because Joseph rose to be the second in command in Egypt, only Pharaoh was hired to him. Go ahead.
to bind his princes at his pleasure, and teach his senators wisdom.
Now we know about the the intellect of the Egyptians, right? But who taught the senators of Egypt wisdom? Our forefathers.
Yes, sir.
Joseph did.
Yes, sir.
They ain't never told us this. This is why this lesson is entitled When We Were Kings. We shaped the understanding of the greatest civilization on the face of the earth, the first greatest civilization on the face of the earth, which is the Egyptians. And our forefathers taught their senators wisdom. Go ahead on and read it, verse 23.
Israel also came into Egypt, and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham.
Israel, the rest of his family, also came to Egypt, and we sojourned, which moved into the land of Ham. That was the biblical name of the continent of Africa, the land of Ham, because Ham's children is the ones who inhabited that land. It got the name of Africa, which is an Italian name, because Scipio Afghanus defeated Hannibal at the Battle of Carthage. Have y'all ever heard of Hannibal, who in his army had all them elephants? And he rolled over Italy. But in the second battle, Scipio defeated Hannibal. And as a prize to his victory, they renamed the continent Africa instead of the land of Ham. Scipio Afghanus, therefore we have the continent Africa. America, Amerigo Vespucius, therefore we have America. But the name of the country is the land of Ham, because your lands is named after the people.
Yes, sir.
So now, let's go into Exodus, the first chapter, because Joseph came down there and he taught the senators of Egypt wisdom, right? And then the book told us that Israel also came into Egypt, and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham. Let's see us in Egypt. Exodus, the first chapter. Exodus chapter 1. All of this that we're dealing with is long before the shores of America that nobody never told us. Exodus 1, we're going to pick it up at verse 6. Exodus 1 and verse 6. All right, my brother, go ahead.
And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation.
So the original 12 tribes of Israel, they died. Joseph and all his brothers, all that generation, they died. Go ahead.
And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them.
Go ahead.
Now there rose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph.
Now you got a new Pharaoh that come up in Egypt that don't know Joseph, don't know what Joseph did for his people. And look at what this new Pharaoh said. Go ahead.
And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
So now we the same color people. This is black on black.
Crime.
But the Egyptians knew the difference from the Israelites. And we multiplied to the point that that new king looked out and seen all them Israelites in the land of Egypt. And he said, listen, there's more of them people in Egyptians than it is Egyptians. Let's do something with these people, because nations was fighting against nation a whole lot back in them days. Lest our enemy come to fight against us, and these Israelites who don't belong here turn around and side with our enemies, they take our land. We got to do something with these people. So look at what they came up with. Verse 11.
Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Python and Ramesses.
So what did they do? They put us in slavery. This is our first enslavement. We came into Egypt free people. But when we multiplied over that first 30-year period, and we scared the Egyptians with our numbers, they put over us taskmasters to afflict us with their burdens. And what did we do? We built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Python and Ramesses. So you want to know who built the pyramids? Your fathers did.
Yes, sir.
You want to know who built the Sphinx? Your fathers did. You want to know who built the great tombs that they done found Tutankhamun and all them other people in? Your fathers did. Go ahead on and read.
But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew.
The more they afflicted us, the more babies we had. And we still do that to this day. Go ahead on and read.
And they were grieved because of the children of Israel.
And they was grieved because of us, because they don't know what to do. In this country, they brought us here in slavery, right? And what did we do? We had children, we had children, we had children. After they abolished slavery and you come up through the Reconstruction period, they started taking care of us. And they still taking care of us to this day with general assistance, Section 8, aid, and everything else. And it's grievance to them because, hey, we ain't got no more money to give these people. Richard Pryor said at one time, we got to go and get us some new niggas. So they went and got the Vietnamese after the Vietnam War, right? Vietnamese ain't having that. We going back home. They was here for a little while, didn't they? Open up little shops like the Chinese and the Japanese. No, we ain't going for that one. They went back home. So now they went and got the Hispanics. Talking about they doing the jobs that we don't want to do. And the Hispanics knocked us off with their drug cartel and our drugs. They gave us something that we like better than work. So they put us in a stupor and they moved on in. Go ahead on and read at verse 13.
And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor.
Go ahead.
And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service when they made them serve was with withers.
So they made us work hard in all manner of work, even in the field. So when we came over here to Mississippi, Arkansas, and Georgia, and Florida, and all down there picking cotton, that wasn't the first time we was in the field. We started off in the fields of Egypt. Now let's turn over to the 3rd chapter of Exodus. Exodus chapter 3. Because we are approaching 400 years of slavery in Egypt. And the Lord said, okay, enough is enough. And this is what he do, because during the period of time, a man named Moses was born. And slavery and hard work couldn't slow us down from having babies. So what they started to do was tell the midwives, when these Hebrew women go to start having them babies, if they have a boy, kill it. If they have a girl, let it stay alive. Why is that? Because the man carried the seed. So if you got a boy baby, you're going to produce another Israelite. If you have a woman baby, and that woman Israelite married an Egyptian, that baby is going to be an Egyptian. They ain't got no problem increasing their numbers, but they're trying to decrease our numbers. The midwives wouldn't go for it. They went and told Pharaoh, said, listen, we can't do that. Because by the time we get there to kill the baby, they done already had the baby. How are we going to take the baby from these women and kill it? So during that period of time, a child named Moses was born. And he was raised in Pharaoh's house. And Moses is one of us. So if Moses is an Israelite, and these people that the world accept as Jews as Israelites, and we know the Egyptians to be dark-skinned people, how is it that one of them is going to pass for one of these? So Moses got himself in trouble because he killed one of these people for beating on one of his brethren. And we can't hold a secret. And when Moses knew that the thing was out, he fled Egypt. So now Moses is in the land of Midian where we pick this up. Exodus 3:1. Exodus 3:1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb.
Now here go a man, Moses. He got a flock of sheep, his father-in-law's sheep. He doing his daily thing. He going to graze the sheep. Ain't thinking about nothing. And look at what happened to him on this particular day. Go ahead.
And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in the flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed.
One day, Moses out there with these sheep, and he see up on the mountainside a bush burning with fire, but the bush ain't being burned up. Man, curiosity set in. I got to go and see what this is. Go ahead on and read.
And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, while the bush is not burnt. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I.
Because it was an angel of the Lord in that bush. That's why the bush was on fire. And the intention wasn't to burn up the bush. The intention was to get Moses' attention. And it happened just that way. And when Moses went to investigate what was going on, the Lord called out to him, because I don't want you to get too close, because I had to kill you then. I want your attention, but you can't get too close to me. He called out to him, and Moses said, Here am I. Go ahead on and read.
And he said, Draw nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place wherein thou standest is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God.
You see how close Moses was to the true and living God? And you see who God introduced himself to Moses as being? The God of your fathers. I am the God of Abraham, I am the God of Jacob, Isaac, and I am the God of Jacob, right? That's us. But he is the creator and maker of all things, right? But right now, he is not the God of this world. He is just ours right now. And we're going to show you where that is too. Go ahead on and read.
And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt.
You see what the Lord called us? His people. I have seen the affliction of my people in Egypt. Go ahead.
And have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrow.
I know what they've been going through, but this is a part of my plan. Go ahead on and read.
And I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land unto a good land and enlarged, unto a land flowed with milk and honey, unto a place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites.
All of these people that he just named are Hamites. Abraham came from Ur of the Chaldeans, which is present-day Iraq. But when Noah got drunk after coming off that ark from that flood, and he got to drinking that wine, and Ham, his youngest son, looked on his nakedness, he didn't curse Ham, he cursed Ham's son Canaan.
Yes, sir.
And this is the curse that I'm going to take Canaan's land away from him, and I'm going to give it to somebody else. And he gave it to us. And he said it was a good land, a land flowing with milk and honey. But what did he say in verse 8? He said, I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, right? Go ahead on and read it, verse 9.
Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come up unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, and that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt.
The Lord said he came down to do this, right? But instead of him doing it, what is he doing? He's commissioning Moses to do it. I'm going to send you, Moses, but I'm going to be behind you. I'm working the scenes behind you. God rules in the kingdom of men. So now Moses go to Pharaoh and said, let my people go. Pharaoh ain't doing it because the Lord said he's going to harden Pharaoh's heart, that he won't listen to Moses. And then you had the 10 plagues that the Lord unleashed on Egypt. We're going over to the 11th chapter of Exodus now. Turn over to the 11th chapter of Exodus. Because right before the Lord deliver us out of Egypt, he wants us to do something. Exodus 11, we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Exodus 11 and verse 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
And the Lord said unto Moses, Yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, ye shall surely thrust you out hence altogether.
Because I've been hitting Egypt upside the head with left and right hooks and uppercuts, and they still ain't let you go. But I got one more knockout blow for them. And when I hit them with this one, they're going to kick you out of there so fast, it's going to make your head spin. Go ahead on and read.
Speak now the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman borrow of her neighbor jewels of silver and jewels of gold.
So before I give Egypt this last blow, let all your brothers and sisters go and talk to these Egyptians and borrow from them jewels of gold, jewels of silver, and clothing and everything. Go ahead.
And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servant, and in the sight of the people.
Go ahead.
And Moses said, Thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die.
So this is the last plague that he's going to put on Egypt before he let us go. I'm going out about midnight. And I'm going to put a plague out here that all of the firstborn in the land of Egypt is going to die. Go ahead.
For the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even to the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue, against man or beast.
He said, I'm getting ready to do this to the Egyptians, but while I'm doing the Egyptians in, ain't nothing going to come upon my children of Israel. A dog ain't going to even bark at the children of Israel, so that they'll know something. Go ahead.
That ye may know how the Lord do put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel.
The Lord put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. Some of us think we're Egyptians. We ain't Egyptians. The only reason why we use depiction of the Egyptians is to show you that we the same color. But the Lord said he's going to put a difference between Israel and the Egyptians, right? Now, this is the Passover night when the Lord came out. And the reason why the firstborn of Israel didn't die, because the Lord had already told Moses to kill a lamb, have everybody kill a lamb of the first year of male and put that blood over the doorpost. This is the beginning of God's plan of salvation, the Passover. This is why we observe it, because his holy days have a meaning. And it started when he was going to free us from 400 years of bondage in Egypt. Now turn over to the 12th chapter of Exodus. Exodus 12, we're going to pick it up at verse 29. Exodus 12 and verse 29. All right, my brother, go ahead.
And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead.
Now all them other 9 plagues that the Lord put on the Egyptians, Pharaoh wouldn't budge. When you got up 7, 8, and 9, he started getting a little nervous. But this 10th one broke him down. And he rose up early and he called for Moses. And what did he do?
And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Rise up and get you forth from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as ye have said. Also take your flocks and your herds as ye have said, and be gone and bless me also.
I want you out of here, but I want you to do something for me, Moses. I want you to pray for me also. Because Pharaoh realized that through messing with us, whose God is God. Because Egypt worshiped a whole host of gods for everything. But we got the one true and living God, and all of them gods of Egypt couldn't save him or his people from our God. So Moses, get out here and you go and worship your God like you done said, but I want you to do something when you're on your way. Pray for me also. Go ahead on and read.
And the Egyptians were urging upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, We be all dead men.
Go ahead.
And the people took their door before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders.
So now we got the Passover night, right? When the Lord let us go. Now the people take their dough before it was leavened. That's why the next day after Passover comes the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Because your bread got to rise, right? We got kicked out of Egypt in haste before the bread could rise. That's why our next high day is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Unleavened bread represents the removing of sin. He's removing us out of bondage, out of Egypt. Go ahead on and read.
And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses. And they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians.
They lent unto us? No. The book said we spoiled them, right? We robbed them Egyptians. We got paid for 400 years in one day. Skip down and read verse 40. Let me show you something. Go ahead, verse 40.
Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years.
All total, we lived in Egypt for 430 years. The first 30 years that we was there is when we made all them babies, to the point that it scared that Pharaoh who came up that didn't know Joseph. Over the next 400 years, we multiplied even more. But now on the day that the Lord get us out of there, he tell Moses to go and tell the children of Israel to go borrow from them Egyptians. Gold and silver and raiment. The book said we spoiled them, right? Spoil means to rob. We got paid for 400 years of labor in one day.
Yes, sir.
Now, turn over to the 19th chapter of Exodus. Exodus chapter 19. Exodus is 19th chapter. Because this is how we came into being. Exodus 19. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Exodus 19 and verse 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
In the third month, when the children of Israel were going forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai.
So it took us 3 months to get back to the point where Moses saw the burning bush. And he brought us right back there to where the Lord had commissioned him to go down into Moses to bring forth the children of Israel. Verse 2, go ahead.
For they were departed from Rephidim and were come to the desert of Sinai and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount.
Go ahead.
And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself.
He said, you saw what I did to them Egyptians, and how I bear you on eagle's wings. When he talked about bearing you on eagle's wings, he's telling you about how fast he did it to the Egyptians. Because I got you out of there in one night. You saw. So he proved himself to us before he asked us to do anything for him. He said, you saw what I did to the Egyptians. The Egyptians is the greatest civilization on the earth at this time. And how I brought you unto myself swiftly like flying on the wings of an eagle. Go ahead to verse 5.
Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then shall you be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine.
So the Lord acted first. He destroyed the greatest civilization on the face of the earth for us. Now you've seen what I did. Now if you do something for me, you're going to be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, because all the earth is mine. Go ahead and read.
And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests.
This is what you're going to be to me. You're going to be a kingdom of priests. Because right now, I am just the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But I got the rest of the sons of Adam that I got to be the God of. I got to be the God of the children of Ham. I got to be the God of the children of Japheth. I got to be the God of the rest of the children of Shem. So you're going to be a kingdom of priests unto me. Go ahead.
And a holy nation. These are the words which thou speak unto the children of Israel.
Go ahead.
And Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him.
Go ahead.
And all the people answered together and said, All that the Lord hath spoken we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto the Lord.
So Moses called for the elders of the people and told them what the Lord told him up there in the mountain. And the people said to Moses, all that the Lord has spoken, Moses, go back and tell them we'll obey. This is when our forefathers went into the covenant with the Lord. This is a perpetual covenant, and this covenant don't break. We are the descendants of them people, so we are still in a covenant with the Lord to this day, because the job that he has commissioned us to do is not over. Now let's go into the 25th chapter of Exodus. Exodus, the 25th chapter. Because now that we have entered into a covenant with the Lord, and he has given us the rules of the covenant, which is none other than the 10 Commandments, we agreed to it. Now the Lord is going to ask us for something. Exodus 25, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Exodus 25 and verse 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speaking to the children of Israel, that they bring me an offering of every man that giveth it willingly with his heart, ye shall take my offering.
Bring me an offering. Where you get something to give the Lord? You got it when you borrowed it from the Egyptians on your way out of there, right? So now that I done delivered you and you got your check for 400 years of work in one day, I want you to bring something to me. Bring me an offering. And everybody who give it willingly, you take it from them. I don't want nobody to say, well, you know what? I done worked 400 years for this money. I'm trying to hold on. If that's the way you feel about it, you keep your money. But I want you to tell the people to bring me an offering, and if anybody give it willingly, you take it from them. Go ahead to verse 3.
And this is the offering which ye shall take of them: gold and silver and brass, and blue and purple and scarlet, and fine linen and goat's hair, and ram skins dyed red, and badger skins and shittim wood.
This is all the stuff that we took out of Egypt. This is our payday. Go ahead on and read.
Oil for the light, spices for anointing oil, and for sweet incense, onyx stones, and stones to be set in the ephod and in the breastplate. And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them.
I want you to take all this material because I want you to build me a sanctuary. Now that you my people and I'm your God, I want to be in the middle of you. So take this stuff because I want you to build me a sanctuary that I might be in the midst of you. Go ahead on and read.
According to all that I show thee, after the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of the instruments thereof, even so shall you make it.
So I'm going to give you the plans of this tabernacle that I want you to build for me. And I want you to build it so that I can be right there in the midst of my people. Now let's go over to the 26th chapter of Exodus. Exodus chapter 26. We're going to read verse 1 and we're going to skip. Exodus 26 and 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
Moreover, thou shalt make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of fine twined linen, and blue and purple and scarlet. With cherubims of cunning work shalt thou make them.
So he's giving them the blueprint of how he wants his house built. Skip down to verse 30. Skip down to verse 30 and continue.
And thou shalt rip the tabernacle according to the fashion thereof, which was showed thee in the mount. And thou shalt make a veil of blue and purple and scarlet, and fine twined linen of cunning work, with cherubim shall it be made. And thou shalt hang it up upon 4 pillars of shittim wood overlaid with gold. The hook shall be of gold upon the 4 sockets of silver. And thou shalt hang up the veil under the taches, that thou mayest bring in thither within the veil the ark of the testimony. And the veil shall divide unto you between the holy place and the most holy. And thou shalt put the mercy seat upon the ark of the testimony in the most holy place. And thou shalt set the table without the veil, and the candlestick over against the table on the side of the tabernacle toward the south. And thou shalt put the table on the north side.
Okay, now this is the plans for the tabernacle of the Lord that he wants us to build with this offering so that he can dwell in the midst of us. Let's have our next slide, my brothers. This is the tabernacle of the Lord. Okay? If you can see this here, you got this outline of a tent. In the middle of this, you have the altar right here where the sacrifices was made. That's where the smoke was coming up from. Then you got the basin where you wash your feet at before you enter into the tabernacle where the Lord is going to dwell. And this fire that's coming down from the top, that represents the Lord descending on it. Now, if you can see these names to the south, you got Gad, Reuben, and Simeon, and they are ministered unto by Levi's son Kohath, which are the Kohites. And then to the west, you got Ephraim, Benjamin, and Manasseh, which are the children of Joseph, and they are ministered by the Gershonites, which is Levi's son Gershom. When you come down here to the north, you got Naphtali, Dan, and Asher, and they are administered by the Marianites, which is another one of Levi's sons. And when you come to the east, you got Zebulun, Judah, and Issachar, and they are ministered to by Moses, Aaron, and Judah. So if you can see that, it's an encampment in each direction. Put that back up. There's an encampment of little tents where the children of Israel is. and the Lord is in the midst of them. This picture over here is that picture that's in the middle. Right here is the holy place. And the walls are pure gold. Here go the table with the candlestick. This is the most holy place. This is the Ark of the Covenant with the cherubim, with the mercy seat where the Lord sit. So this is what the Lord asked Israel to bring them that offering for, so they could build him a tabernacle so that he could dwell in the midst of them. So now I got some printed history that's called Treasures of the House of the Lord from this guy named Lambert Dolphin. And this history was back from 1992. So that would make this history what? 24 years old now? 24 years old now, right? This is what this says. Moses was also instructed to construct a large portable tabernacle. Put that picture of the tabernacle back up while I'm reading this, my brothers. That slide that we just had. Keep that up for a minute. He was also instructed to construct a large portable tabernacle or tent entrusted to the care of the priest of Aaron. A detailed description of this tabernacle is given in Exodus the 25th through the 30th chapters. The tabernacle was built by a free will offering donated by the people in such generous amounts that more than enough material were available. The materials assembled for the tabernacle are described in detail in Exodus the 35th through the 38th chapters and summarized in Exodus the 38th chapter, verses 21 through 30. Now look at this here. The total quantity of gold collected was approximately 1 ton. Of silver, 3 3/4 tons. Of bronze, 2 1/2 tons. At today's prices, gold is approximately $500 per troy ounce, or $6,000 per pound, or $12 million per ton. This was 24 years ago. Silver currently is priced at about $12 per troy ounce, or $144 per pound, which is $288,000 per ton. Once again, these are the prices from 24 years ago. Hence, the gold and the silver used in the tabernacle of Moses would be worth over this tent where he got the new stuff up there. Y'all ahead of me. Put the tabernacle, yeah. This tent right here that Moses then built. If you would have built this here 24 years ago, that tent with that tabernacle in it would have cost $13 million. Now, my brothers, put that other slide back up. Put the slide back up with the prices in it. Here's today. As of February the 26th, 2016, gold was $1,226.70 a troy ounce. It was $14,720.40 a troy pound, and it was $29,440,800 a troy ton. Silver, as of February the 26th, was $15.16 a troy ounce. It was $181.92 a troy pound, and it was $363,840 a ton. The gold value of the candlestick that was in that tabernacle, if you had to do that today, that candlestick would have cost $1,472,040 just for the candlestick, if you had to do that as of February the 26th. The total gold and silver value of that portable tent, if you had to construct that as of February the 26th, would have cost you $32,277,240. And that's a portable tent. This is when we were kings.
Yes, sir.
This is what we did for our God. Now put that in perspective. This building right here today costs us what, $20 million? That tent cost more than this building. And that was almost 5,000 years ago. This is how life was for us when we were kings. Now, let's go into Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter. Deuteronomy chapter 4. So the Lord has brought us out of captivity. He's in the wilderness with us. He's given us laws and statutes, and he's dwelling right in the midst of us. And this is what he had Moses tell us. Deuteronomy chapter 4. Deuteronomy chapter 4, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Deuteronomy 4 and verse 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
Now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them, that you may live, and go in and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers giveth you.
Now this land is the land of the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, all them 7 nations that he took out of the way, right? We ain't even got the land yet. We still in the desert outside Egypt in a $30 million tent, still being taught by the Lord nationhood. So now Moses is letting you know, I done taught you these statutes and judgments that you may do them when you go and receive the land that the Lord God swore unto your fathers to give you. Go ahead at verse 2.
Ye shall not add unto the words which I command you, neither shall you minutes out from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God which I command you.
Don't add nothing to what I told you. Don't take nothing away from what I told you. I want you to do exactly what I said. Go ahead on and read.
Your eyes have seen what the Lord did because of Baal Peor, and for all the men that followed Baal Peor. The Lord thy God have destroyed them from among you.
So the Lord showed you what he did to the people who worship paganism before you. Everybody who worshiped strange gods before you, I done destroyed them before your eyes. You didn't fight not one battle. All these people I knocked off in front of you, and you saw me working. Go ahead on and read.
But ye did that cleave unto the Lord your God, are alive every one of you this day.
So everybody who stayed on my side, you still alive to this day. I ain't lost not one person. Go ahead on and read.
Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations.
So when you keep the word of God, and the Lord has a plan to scatter you all over the world. And why do he have a plan to scatter you all over the world? Because you are his priest. And you got to teach the rest of the sons of Adam. I'm not telling all them people to come up here to Jerusalem. I'm sending you to them.
Yes,
and when I send you out all over the world, you take these laws and statutes and judgments with you, because this is your wisdom in the sight of the nations where you go. You at home in your house, right? And your parents done taught you manners and taught you how to behave yourself, right? Now they getting ready to take you outside. What they say? Don't get out here and embarrass me. Now, you know what I told you when we was in the house? I want you to be on your best behavior out here. When I send you out in the world to the rest of the children of Adam, this is your wisdom in the sight of the nation. You do exactly what I told you to do. You don't add nothing to it, and you don't take nothing away from it. Go ahead on and read.
Which shall hear of these statutes and say, surely this great nation is the wise and understanding people.
So when these other people hear these statutes and judgments, they're going to say, surely this nation is a wise and understanding people. Go ahead on and read.
For what nation is there so great, who have God so nigh to them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him for?
Okay, now look at what he say. What nation is there who have a people that's so great that the Almighty God is that close unto them? Back then, God was literally talking to our forefathers. It wasn't no dream. It wasn't no hoax. God was actually talking to them. He wouldn't let them see him, because the book say you can't look at God in his strength and live. Because God was still in his spirit form. He was in his power. You could hear his voice, but you couldn't see him. And the people is going to say, what nation is there so great, who have God so near unto them as the Lord our God, and all things that we call on him for, right? Because the only thing the children of Israel had to do was call out. God would hear, and he would be there for us. Go ahead on and read.
And what nation is there so great that have statutes and judgments, so righteous is all this law, which I set before you this day?
And that law is none other than the Ten Commandments. When you look at those Ten Commandments, you got to ask yourself, what's wrong with them?
Mm-hmm.
Thou shalt not kill. If you did that, we wouldn't have all this killing that's going on in the street. Black on black crime, police on black crime, white on black crime, Mexican on black crime, everybody on us. You wouldn't have that. Nation against nation, thou shalt not kill. You wouldn't have that, right? Thou shalt not commit adultery. You wouldn't have all this divorce. And you wouldn't have all these different broken families and whatnot. And you wouldn't have all of this stress on the minds of single mothers and children with only one parent and everything. Thou shalt not covet. Thou shalt not steal. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. You need a day of rest. Don't have all these other strange gods. You won't get broke with Easter. You won't get broke with Christmas. You won't get broke with Valentine's Day. And you won't have to put up with all this foolishness that don't mean nothing. Go ahead at verse 9.
Only take heed to thyself, and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes have seen, and lest thou depart from thy heart all the days of thy life, which teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons.
So our forefathers was supposed to pass all this knowledge down. Teach it to your sons and your sons' sons. This thing was supposed to come down through the generations. Go ahead at verse 10.
Especially the day that thou stoodest before the Lord thy God in Horeb, when the Lord said unto me, gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children.
And I want you to especially tell your children about the day that you stood at the foot of Mount Horeb and I gave you them 10 commandments. That you may do these things and live, and you teach your children that they might live upon the earth all these days in peace. Now, let's go into Acts, the 13th chapter. Because this, what we just looked at, is actually our foundation. Now let's go into Acts, the 13th chapter, and we're going to get a quick rundown of some more history. And everything that we read in here, people, belongs to us. This is what life was like for us before the shores of America. This is who we are as a people. And this is where all of our information is in the pages of this book that we done had all this time and nobody directed us to it this way. Acts chapter 13. And we're going to pick it up at verse 17. Acts 13 and 17. All right, my brother, go ahead.
The God of this people of Israel chose our fathers, and exalted the people when they dwelt as strangers in the land of Egypt. And with a high arm brought he them out of it.
You see what the book says? The God of this people, Israel, whose fathers he chose and exalted them when we were strangers in Egypt, right? Go ahead on and read.
And about the time of 40 years suffered he their manners in the wilderness.
Because after he brought us out of Egypt, he kept us in the wilderness for 40 years with that portable tent around. That was a 40-year period that we was in the wilderness before we went and inhabited the land that he took from Canaan's children. But go ahead on and read.
And when he had destroyed 7 nations in the land of Canaan, he divided their land to them by lot.
Go ahead.
And after that he gave unto them judges about the space of 450 years until Samuel the prophet.
Now he gave us judges at about the space of 450 years. During that 450-year period, we had 15 judges that judged over us before we got our first king. Go ahead on and read.
And afterward they desired a king, and God gave unto them Saul, the son of Cis, a man of the tribe of Benjamin, by the space of 40 years.
Now that was our first king, Saul. He was of the tribe of Benjamin. We ain't never know we had a king. Even when you looked at Alex Haley's roots and Kunta Kinte came over here, they didn't have no king amongst them. It was just the slaves on the boat. Wasn't no king there, was it? Only king you saw was with Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall and Coming to America. And they was Hamites. They wasn't even us. But we had a king, and our king was King Saul of the tribe of Benjamin, the first king of Israel, and he reigned about the space of 40 years. Go ahead on and read.
And when he had removed him, he raised up unto them David to be their king.
David was the second king of Israel. Go ahead.
To whom also he gave testimony and said, I have found David, the son of Jesse, a man after mine own heart, which shall fulfill all my will.
So the Lord was so in love with David that he called David a man after his own heart. And through David, one of our forefathers, this man is going to fulfill all of the Lord's will. Go ahead on and read.
Of this man's seed.
David's seed. Because David was of the tribe of Judah. Of this man's seed, go ahead.
Have God, according to his promise, raised up Israel a Savior, Jesus.
Of David's seed, God, according to his promise, had raised up a Savior. Savior is one who saves, right? And we need to be saved from sin. This is what we need to be saved from, because we are under sin, and the book tells you that the wages of sin is death. And the only thing that can make atonement for sin is blood. And Jesus was the only one clean enough. By man came sin into the world, and death by sin. By man came the resurrection of the dead. And that was through Jesus' blood. So of David's seed, God, according to his promise, had raised unto Israel a Savior, none other than Jesus. So when Almighty God manifested himself in the flesh as a flesh and blood man and came through Mary, guess what? He was an Israelite.
Yes, sir.
He was one of ours.
Yes, sir.
But they're going to give you this blonde hair, blue-eyed picture. See, this is why people think that the Bible ain't no good. Because we've been deceived to think that this is all about the white man. If you know this book ain't got nothing to do with the white man. It's all about us. You need to know who Israel is. It ain't this man that the world accepted as a Jew. It's us. When God came into his own, he looked like us. When Herod was trying to kill him, he went down amongst these people to hide. Now, if he looked like Michelangelo's picture, you can't hide among people that look like this. You stick out like a sore thumb. But this is what we've been taught all our lives. And we done had the same book all our lives, but spiritually, we blind, we can't see. Spiritually, we deaf, we can't hear. We know something wrong, but we don't even consider it.
No, sir.
There's something that just ain't right. So we just let it go, and we go with the status quo. Now, our last king was Solomon. This was David's son. Let's go into 1 Kings, the 3rd chapter, to look at him. 1 Kings chapter 3. 1 Kings chapter 3. And we're going to look at the last king that we had over a united kingdom. 1 Kings, the 3rd chapter. 1 Kings chapter 3. And we're going to pick it up at verse 5. 1 Kings 3 and verse 5. All right, my brother, go ahead.
In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And God said, ask what I shall give thee.
Now look at here. God appeared unto once again, one of our forefathers, Solomon. He appeared unto him in a dream. And he told Solomon, ask of me what it is you want me to give you. How many of us would love to have God do that for us? But I'm going to show you something, because you can think of whatever it is you think you might ask him for. But I'm going to show you what one of your fathers asked for thousands of years ago. And you tell me how ignorant he sounds, as they would have you think we were back in them days. God appeared to him and said, ask what I shall give thee. Go ahead at verse 6.
And Solomon said, thou hast showed unto thy servant David, my father, great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with thee. And thou hast kept for him this great kindness, that thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne as it is this day. And now, Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or to come in.
Now, Solomon is a teenager at this time, somewhere around 16, 17 years old. His father is dead. He's the successor to the throne over us as a nation of people. And he told the Lord, said, listen, you didn't put me in a position, and I ain't nothing but a kid. I don't even know how to come in or come out. So this is what I want you to give me. Go ahead.
And thy servant is in the midst of thy people which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people?
So he said, I want you to give me an understanding heart, that I can know good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people? Go ahead on and read.
And the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing.
And do that sound like a bad request from an ignorant person? Sound like we was very educated back then, don't it? In so much that when he asked the true and living God that, God was impressed by it. He said that the speech pleased the Lord, that Solomon had asked this thing, and God was so impressed with what Solomon requested. Look at what God did for Solomon. Verse 11.
And God said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life.
You didn't ask for long life. Some of us would have probably did that if our numbers is getting short. We probably said, Lord, you know what? I'm on the last end of this thing. Can you give me a couple of more years? Go ahead.
Neither has asked riches for thyself.
We would have probably asked for some money. But he didn't even ask for no money. Go ahead.
Nor has asked the life of thine enemies.
You didn't even ask to kill your enemies. Go ahead.
But has asked thyself, but have asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment.
But you have asked for understanding to be able to discern judgment. Go ahead.
Behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after shall there rise any unto thee.
I am giving you wisdom without measure, to the point that it ain't gonna be nobody wiser before you or after you. Our forefather Solomon have the reputation from God as being the wisest man that ever lived. He was one of us. So much for being savages on the dark continent. One of our people was the wisest man that ever lived. Go ahead on the read.
13. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked.
I'm giving you something else that you didn't even ask for. Go ahead.
Both riches and honor, so that there should be among the kings like unto thee all thy days.
So I'm going to even give you riches, so that there's not going to be like unto you another king in all your days. Solomon couldn't be compared to nobody. Read that 14th verse.
If thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments as thy father David did walk, then I will lengthen thy days.
And if you keep my commandments and my statutes like your father did, I will even give you long life. What else can you ask for? The wisest man who ever lived, one of the richest men that ever lived, and now I'm going to be able to live for a long time too? What more can you ask for? This happened to one of ours. Let's turn over to the 4th chapter. 1 Kings 4. 1 Kings 4. And we're going to read verse 1, and then we're going to skip. 1 Kings 4 and verse 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
So King Solomon was king over all Israel.
He was the last king over the United Kingdom. Skip down to verse 29. Skip down to verse 29 and continue.
And God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding much, and largeness of heart, even as the sand that is on the seashore.
Go ahead.
And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country, and all the wisdom of Egypt. For he was wiser than all men, than the Ethan, the Ezrahite, the Heman, and the Charcoal, and Darda, the sons of Mahal, and his fame was in all nations round about.
The whole world knew about Solomon, one of us, the third king of Israel. Skip down and read verse 34.
And there came of all people to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all kings of the earth which had heard of his wisdom.
So all people, all the kings of the earth come to hear the wisdom of Solomon. But where did Solomon get his wisdom from? He got it from the Lord. So this ain't Solomon's wisdom. This is God's wisdom coming through Solomon. And if you do what thus saith the Lord, and he bless you like this here, you are supposed to glorify him. And this is what Solomon was doing at this time. Now let's go into 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles, the 3rd chapter. Because Solomon is rich, he's wise, and he's got the attention of the whole world. And Solomon decided he wanted to do something for God. 2 Chronicles chapter 3. 2 Chronicles chapter 3. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. 2 Chronicles 3 and verse 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
Then Solomon began to build the house of the Lord at Jerusalem and Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared unto David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And he began to build in the 2nd day of the 2nd month, in the 4th year of his reign.
So in the 4th year of his reign, in the 2nd day of the 2nd month, he began to build a permanent house of the Lord, because up until this point, the Lord was dwelling in a tent. So now, let's have our next slide, my brother. Our next slide is going to be a slide of the temple that Solomon built. This is the temple of Solomon. This replaced that $32 million tent. This is the interior of the temple. You enter into the temple right here. This is the holy place with the table of the showbread, walls, pure gold. You come up these stairs, go through this golden door. This is the most holy place with the mercy seat, the cherubim, where the priest came in on the Day of Atonement once a year. This panel here is showing you the gold plates that line the temple that Solomon built. Keep this picture up here. Keep this picture up here. We're going to go back to this printed history, and I'm going to show you what this printed history tell you about this picture right here. It says, it is known that most or all of the holy vessels of gold and silver from the tabernacle, that portable tent, were with the ark when it was brought from the city of David to the first temple of Solomon. Although David, who was the 2nd king of Israel, desired to build a permanent house of God in Jerusalem, his son Solomon built the first temple. The plans were those of David, and David amassed the materials. The materials included 100,000 talents of gold and 1 million talents of silver. From David's own personal fortune, he gave 3,000 talents of gold, 7,000 talents of high-grade silver. This is an enormous quantity of gold and silver by any standard. 100,000 talents of gold 24 years ago equals 3,750 tons of value 24 years ago of $45 billion. 1 million talents of silver equals 37,500 tons. Value 24 years ago equaled $10.8 billion. So in round numbers, the wealth of this temple here that Solomon built, if you was to have built that 24 years ago, it would have cost $56 billion. In addition to all of the gold and silver, great quantities of bronze, cedar, iron, and precious stones were contributed. The most holy place of Solomon's temple was lined with cedar from Lebanon and covered with 600 talents of gold. The gold plating alone, about 540,000 troy ounces, would be worth about $270 million 24 years ago. The doors of the temple were also covered with gold plates. During this period of Israel history, Solomon's income was 666 talents of pure gold per year, or about 600,000 troy ounces, worth $300 million 24 years ago. Now, let's have our next slide up here. The next slide. The gold that was in Solomon's temple as of February the 26th, the gold would equal $110,430,000,000. The silver would equal $13,644,000,000. The total value to build that temple as of February the 26th of this year would be $124,047,000,000. This is the house that we built for our God. When they came over there and knocked us off and brought us over into slavery, they didn't knock off no ignorant poor people. Nations don't go to nations for nothing and knock off other people. You see the kind of wealth we had before the shores of America? Put that slide back up. They talked about the gold plating. The gold plating in that temple would have been worth $662,418,000. This is the gold plating that was on the wall. Solomon's income, if you had to pay him now, you would be paying Solomon $736,020,000 a year. Every year. The richest, wisest king that ever lived. One of us.
Yes, sir.
This is how we were rolling when we was king. Keep this slide up here. See? You wonder why we got exquisite taste. We want to wear designer clothes. We want to drive the best cars. We on welfare with a link card at Mariano's in a mink buying our groceries. And we live in the basement of our mama's house. Don't make no sense. We make the world turn. The world copy us.
Yes, sir.
You got these rappers, Cristal, Ciroc. White people drink that stuff now. Ace of Spades. And everything that we do, they make money off of. Because it's in our DNA. This is why we do what we do and we don't even understand it. Because we are a nation of kings and priests.
Yes, sir.
And this is how we used to live in. We serve a great God.
Yes, sir.
And he wants the best.
Yes, sir.
This is his house.
Yes,
that's
sir.
costing this kind of money. Okay? The total value of his house would be $124,047,000,000 if they had to build what Solomon built, if they had to build it today. That's his house. Okay? Now, look at this here. It says, so King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth in riches and wisdom. The splendor of Solomon's kingdom brought him recognition and fame that attracted much foreign attention. For example, during her visit to test Solomon with hard questions, the Queen of Sheba brought Solomon 120 talents of gold, $54 million 24 years ago, and a very great store of spices and precious stone. If Queen of Sheba had to come to talk to Solomon today, guess how much money she would have to bring him? $176,644,800. They talk about Hillary Clinton getting paid millions of dollars to her speeches. Try paying Solomon to come and talk to you. One of us, when we were kings, but nobody told us about this. Now, this is how we was rolling back then, right? And this is the blessing that the Lord placed on Solomon. But let me show you what Solomon did. Let's go into 1 Kings. Because you figure with all this money, you sit, right? Can't do no wrong. God on your side. You got all this splendid house and wealth and everybody love you. And you got fame and fortune. Let me show you what all that fame and fortune did to Solomon. 1 Kings chapter 11. 1 Kings chapter 11. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
But King Solomon loved many strange women.
Don't that sound like us? That's an Israelite. But King Solomon loved many strange women. Go ahead.
Together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites,
Go ahead.
of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come into you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon claved unto these in love.
The Lord warned Solomon, warned the whole nation of Israel, don't marry these people. Don't give your sons to these people, and don't take their daughters for your sons, because these people is going to turn your heart away from serving me. Everything that the Lord told Solomon don't do, Solomon was crazy about it. How many times when you tell your children, don't do this, that's the very thing they go and do. They're trying to test you. Man, they don't want me to do this. It must be something to this. Let me go and find out what it is. Solomon clave to these people in love. Go ahead at verse 3.
And he had 700 wives, princes, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart.
And his wives turned away his heart, just like the Lord said. 700 wives. You had a basketball player named Wilt Chamberlain. I don't know if y'all old enough to know him. He said he had about 1,000 women, didn't he? 10,000? As an Israelite for you, ain't it? He outdid Solomon here. Go ahead to verse 4.
For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wife turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father.
So he allowed these women to turn his heart away from his God, and that was his downfall. Skip down to verse 9 and go ahead.
And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice.
The Lord came to Solomon twice and warned Solomon, but Solomon wouldn't listen. So the Lord is angry with him because his heart was turned away from him. Go ahead on and read.
And he commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded.
Go ahead.
Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant.
So the Lord said, I'm going to break up the nation of Israel now, and I'm going to give it to your servant. Go ahead on and read.
Notwithstanding, in thy days will I not do it for David thy father's sake.
I'm not going to do it while you're alive, because I promised David that I was going to have mercy on his son. Go ahead.
But I will rend it out of the hand of thy son.
Because your son is going to succeed you. And when your son take the throne in your place, Solomon, that's when I'm going to break up the nation. Go ahead on and read.
Howbeit, I will not rend it away all the kingdom, but will give one tribe to thy son for David my servant's sake, or for Jerusalem's sake which I have chosen.
So I'm not going to take the whole nation from you. I'm going to give you one tribe, and that tribe is none other than the tribe of Benjamin. Let us have our next slide, my brothers. Let us have our next slide. Okay? Rehoboam is Solomon's son. He was made king over Israel after Solomon's death. The nation was divided during his reign. Jeroboam, the Ephraimite, was made king over Israel, which is 10 tribes. And Rehoboam was made king over Judah and Benjamin. Later, the tribe of Levi leaves Jeroboam and come back to Judah and Benjamin because Jeroboam started selling out the priesthood to the highest bidder. And the Lord said that only the children of Aaron could be the high priest. So Levi knew that this was wrong, so they came back. So therefore, you only have 9 tribes up there. Now, let us have our next slide. After the nation split, Judah had 18 kings to reign over them after the division of the nation. Israel, which is the northern tribes, the 9 tribes, they had 19 kings to reign over them. And all 19 of these kings did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. So that in 722 BC, the Assyrians moved the 9 tribes of Israel and took them into captivity, never to return. Thus, you come up with the term, the lost tribes of Israel. So now, let us have our next slide. Let us have our next slide. If you take the year that the Assyrians took the 9 tribes out, which was 722 22 BC, and you add it to our present year, 2016, that will equal 2,738 years. It was 2,738 years ago that the 9 tribes was removed from Israel, never to return. What a lot of people don't know, that them 9 tribes didn't even know Jesus. They got removed during the prophecy of Isaiah. Isaiah told you about it. And when Jesus came to Jerusalem, when he was manifested through Mary, wasn't nobody left but Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Now let's go into 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, to look at this. 2 Kings chapter 17. We're going to look at the northern kingdom, which kept the national name Israel, that the Assyrians took into captivity. 2 Kings chapter 17. 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. We're going to pick it up at verse 5. 2 Kings 17 and 5. All right, my brother, go ahead.
Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years.
Because Samaria became the capital of the national part of the kingdom Israel. Jerusalem was the capital of the southern kingdom, which was Judea. So the king of Assyria came up through all the land of Samaria and besieged it 3 years. Go ahead.
In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habar by the river of Gozan in the city of the Medes.
Placed them in the city of the Medes. Your Medes is your present day Russians. So he placed our brothers, the 9 tribes of Israel, in southwestern Russia, in the cities of the Medes. Go ahead on and read.
For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared of the gods.
Go ahead.
And walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their God. And they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced cities.
So we call ourselves doing that which was secret from the Lord, trying to have from. But God see everything. The Bible tells you he sit on the circle of the earth and he ponders the going of man. He see everything that we do. Skip down to verse 16. Skip down to verse 16 and go ahead.
And they left all the commandments of the Lord their God.
And they left off the commandments of the Lord. We stopped doing it. We started to become spiritually blind. We started to become spiritually deaf. We left off doing the commandments of the Lord our God. Go ahead.
And made them molten images, even 2 calves, and a great grove, and worship all the host of heaven, and serve Baal. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire.
We started burning our children on altars to these strange gods. We were some wicked people. We started doing everything contrary to what the Lord told us to do. Go ahead on and read.
And used divination and enchantments.
We became witch doctors and soothsayers and whatnot, believing in witchcraft. Go ahead on and read.
And sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger.
Go ahead.
Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only.
So he took the 9 tribes and hey, you got to get out of my sight. And it wasn't nobody left but Judah only. But Judah had Benjamin and Levi with him. Skip down to verse 20 and go ahead.
And the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel and afflicted them and delivered them into the hand of spoilers until he had cast them out of his sight. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. And Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord and made them sin a great sin.
Because all of the kings of Israel was evil in the sight of the Lord. Go ahead on and read.
For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They departed not from them, until the Lord had removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. And
we can say unto this very day. The 9 tribes is carried out of their land unto all of the cities of the Assyrians, which right now you're dealing with northern Iraq and you're going over into Russia to this day. They have not been home. But now, after the Assyrians' captivity, 135 years later, Nebuchadnezzar come and knock off Judah.
Yes, sir.
Let us have our next slide. Let us have our next slide. In the year 605 BC, Daniel was taken captive by Nebuchadnezzar. Now, if you take our present year, 2016, and you add it to 605 BC, that'll give you 2,621 years ago. When you start reading the book of Daniel, you're dealing with over 2,500 years of history, right? Daniel was one of us. Now let's go and see what the book say about Daniel 2,621 years ago when Nebuchadnezzar came and got him. Let's go into the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 1. Daniel chapter 1. Daniel chapter 1, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Daniel 1 and verse 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Sinai to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God.
So not only did they take the people, they started taking the gold vessels of the house of God. Go ahead on and read.
And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes.
So he want the captain of his guard to bring certain of the children of Israel. Those are the king's seed, right? And of the princes. And look at what he said about these children, verse 4.
Children in whom was no blemish.
Children in whom is no blemish. But we were savages. We was uneducated out of the dark continent back then, right? But here we have Daniel, a child who has no blemish. Go ahead.
But well favored, and skillful in all wisdom.
Skillful in all wisdom. Go ahead.
And cunning in knowledge.
Cunning in knowledge. Go ahead.
And understanding science.
And understanding science. We talking about 2,621 years ago. Our children understood science. This is when we were kings. This is before we come to America. They didn't come and get some ignorant people. This is why we done built the world. We built Pharaoh cities for Ramesses. It was a black man who designed Washington, D.C. We picked the cotton, planted the tobacco, the sugar cane, and everything that made this country wealthy when we got here. And before we got here, we was building Europe and every place else because we were some smart people. Cunning in knowledge and understanding science. Go ahead.
And such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace.
And we had the ability in us that we were so well favored and behaved that we could stand in the king's palace. We wasn't wearing our pants down around our butt and talking crazy and looking crazy. We was well favored and we were smart and we could stand in the king's palace. And what we do, go ahead.
And whom they might teach the learning of the tongue of the Chaldeans.
And they wanted to teach us their language, so in turn, we can educate them just like Joseph educated the senators of Egypt. We're going to get these people, and we're going to teach them our tongue so that we can understand them, and in turn, we're going to pick their brain. And once we pick their brain, we're going to put them to work, and they're going to build our nation up. We wasn't no poor ragtag people that they came and got. They knew what they was doing when they came and got us. Now, this was 2,621 years ago. Now, let's go into St. Luke, the 19th chapter. Because that was under Nebuchadnezzar, right? Now, the Romans got to come and deal with us. And the Lord, when he came down, he warned us about this Roman captivity. St. Luke chapter 19, because we walking this thing on down. St. Luke chapter 19. We're going to pick it up at verse 41. St. Luke 19 and verse 41. All right, my brother, go ahead.
And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, if thou hast known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong to thy peace, but now thou art hid from thine eyes.
Because we spiritually blind right now. The Lord done had enough of us, and we done rebelled, and we done turned away from him, and we think we doing something, and we got the Romans over us. We done had the influence of the Gentile over us ever since Nebuchadnezzar. And we done forgot self and our God. So now the Lord say, hey, something getting ready to happen to you. And if you only had the eyes to see, to know the day of reckoning, you'd be able to prepare for it. But you too blind to see what's getting ready to happen. Go ahead on and read.
For the day shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, a capacity round about, and keep thee in on every side.
This is none other than the Romans, because the Romans is in Jerusalem now with us. And we probably thought the Romans was our friend, and we probably had some Roman friends, and everybody's every hunky-dory, like we think we free now, and we think that the powers that be like us now, and everything hunky-dory, but these people still your enemy. And when they get the chance, they will still do you. Go ahead on and read.
And they shall lay and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knowest not the time of thy visitation.
What happened when we started this out? The ox knows his owner, the ass his master's crib. But we don't know, we don't even consider. He said, your cities are burnt and they lay desolate, and strangers devour it in your presence, and you don't even consider what's going on. This is what's happening to us. Now we get ready to go back to this printed history. And this printed history says, thus the Roman plunder could well have been worth tens of millions of dollars. They knew what they was doing when they come to sack us. They're coming after us, and they're coming after our wealth. The pillaging of the temple, its total destruction, and the burning of Jerusalem with terrible suffering and loss of life occurred in 70 AD under the Roman general Titus. Tradition has it that the intense flames of the temple fire melted the gold and silver of the temple so that it ran between the cracks of the rocks. Roman soldiers then totally dismantled the temple stone by stone to extract the silver and the gold. That's why it wasn't one stone left upon another. Not because they were just trying to tear down the building. They accidentally set a fire in the building. And now all of that gold, we could take out the lampstand. We could take off the plates of gold off the wall, but the fire caused all this stuff to melt. And the gold is running like water through the cracks of the building. They had to take it apart stone by stone so they could extract the gold. Now, let's go to our next slide. Let's go to our next slide. Is it? Okay. 2016 is our present year. 70 AD, Titus sacks Jerusalem. 2016 AD and 70 AD, you got a minus now. When you take 70 AD from 2016 AD, that equals 1,946 years ago. That's when Rome sacked Jerusalem, 1,946 years ago. That's the last time the true children of Israel, our forefathers, had a homeland. Now, this printed history tells us that since the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, Israel has been scattered among the nations in lowliness and in obscurity. Now, let's have our next slide, my brother. 1,946 years since Jerusalem was sacked in 70 AD. We've been here in America for 397 years. If you take 1,946 years and subtract 397 years from it, that leaves us with 1,549 years that we was in lowliness and obscurity before we even came to America. When the Romans kicked us out of our house in 70 AD, we didn't come straight here. We didn't come here for another 1,549 years. Where were we in that 1,500-year period? We're going to show you. Let's go to Leviticus, the 26th chapter. What did the Lord tell you when Start this thing off. I have raised up children, and they have rebelled against me.
Yes, sir.
The 9 tribes rebelled against him, and he had the Assyrians come and take him away. Now, the last vestige of our people have rebelled against the Lord, and the Lord had the Romans come and take us out. And look at what the Lord say here. Because see, people don't know that God talk like this. Leviticus chapter 26, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Leviticus 26 and 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
You should make you no idols, no graven image, neither rear up your standing image, neither shall you set up any image of stone in your hand,
In your land.
To bow down unto it, for I am the Lord your God.
The Lord said he is a jealous God, right? Don't make no statues. Don't make no images. Don't stand them up in your land. Don't you bow down to them, because that ain't who delivered you. That ain't who been putting up with you. That ain't who love you. That's something that you done made with your own hands. Go ahead to verse 2.
You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord.
You shall keep my Sabbaths, plural, with an S on it, right? Not only the 7th-day Sabbath, but all of his 7 annual holy days, which represents his plan for salvation. Skip down to verse 14. Skip down to verse 14 and go ahead.
But if you will not hearken unto me and will not do all these commandments.
But if you will not, because you're a free agent, you can do what you want to do, but I'm telling you what you better do, what you ought to do, what is good for you to do. But if you don't want to do what I say, I'm going to let you know what I'm going to do to you. Go ahead on and read.
And if you shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that you would not do all my commandments, but that you break my covenant, I also will do this unto you.
This is what I'm going to do to you. What is it?
I will even appoint over you terror.
I'm going to appoint over you terror. Go ahead.
Consumption, and the burning ague that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart. And you shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. And I will set my face against you, and you shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and you shall flee when none pursue of you. And if you would not yet for all this hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins.
You see what's happening to us? What's happening to us is being directed by the Lord. You done did all this evil toward me. Guess what? I got some evil that I'm going to do to you, but guess what? I'm going to do it through you from the people who you think like you. I'm working through man. I'm bringing your enemy against you. You're going to sow your seed in vain because he's going to eat it. I'm going to set over you terror, and you're going to run when ain't nobody even chasing you. And if you don't turn after this, I got 7 times more that I'm going to do to you. Skip down to verse 30 and go ahead.
And I will destroy your high places and cut down your images and cast your carcasses upon the carcasses of your idols, and my soul shall abhor you. And I will make your cities waste and bring your sanctuaries into desolation. And I will not smell the savor of your sweet odors. And I will bring the land into desolation, and your enemies which dwell therein shall be astonished at it. And I will scatter you among the heathen, and I will draw the sword after you, and your land shall be desolate, and your cities waste.
You see what the Lord said? I'm going to scatter you among the heathen. Because he done brought the Romans down on us, and he done took the last vestiges of Israel out of the land. Your cities are laid waste, they desolate, and you are scattered among the nations. Read verse 38.
And you shall perish among the heathen, and the land of your enemies shall eat you up.
And you're going to perish among the heathen, and the land of your enemies is going to eat you up. America is the land of our enemies. And we died in America. We died in the Caribbean. We died in South America. We died every place but Israel because we scattered all over the world. Now we're going to go into a history book, the last 2 million years, page 87, and it's going to bear out what the Lord just said in Leviticus. The crucifixion of Jesus about AD 30 did not end Jewish resistance to the Roman occupation. In 70, when the country was again in a state of revolt, Jerusalem, the holy city, became the core of resistance to the Romans. Titus, the son of Emperor Vespasian, proceeded to lay siege to Jerusalem. The city fell, and the inhabitants were enslaved in their thousands and dispersed throughout the Mediterranean world. What is the Mediterranean world? The Mediterranean world is the Western Hemisphere. The Assyrians took us in the Eastern Hemisphere, on the other side of the Euphrates, into Russia and whatnot, and the Romans brought us into the Western Hemisphere. When the Lord divided the earth, he talked about East and West, right? The West is ruled by Rome and the papacy, and the East is ruled by Russia and the czars, and you got an Orthodox guy over there. And you just had a historic meeting against the two churches. Francis and the guy over there, I can't remember his name, but he wear a beard and got a crown, and he's the equivalent of the Pope in the Eastern Hemisphere. And that is the Mediterranean world. Something else happened in 70 AD. World Scope Encyclopedia, under Edom, our brother, the elder that was supposed to serve the younger, right? He sold us his birthright, right? Look at what World Scope Encyclopedia said about this guy. Edom, meaning red, the name given to Esau on account of the red pottage, secured him from his brother Jacob. The name was also given to the country settled by Esau, having been previously known as Mount Seir. During the reigns of David and Solomon, Edom was under the subjection of the Israelites. Later, the Edomites ravaged the southern borders of Palestine and were denounced with considerable vehemence by the prophets of Israel. After the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the name of Edom or Idumea disappeared from geography. The Romans took us into captivity, right? And brought us out of our land into the Mediterranean world, but all of a sudden Esau disappeared. How did he disappear? Because when the Romans took us out of the way, Esau came into our house and took our name. And since 70 AD, which is 1,549 years, the world has been recognizing him as us, and we are nobody. Let's go into Psalms 83rd chapter. Psalms chapter 83. See, this book in history bears it out. This ain't no white man's book that's used to keep us down. This is our history that we too blind to see. And our prophets or our spiritual people don't care nothing about us because they're making money on us. Because they acting like this is so mysterious. And you got to follow me in order to get into the kingdom. So you pay me. And they riding around in jets, tailor-made clothes, sleeping with your daughters and your wives behind your back. Your grandmama's cooking food for them and whatnot. And you like, what in the world is going on? You know there's something wrong with that mess, but you're going to blame it on this. Don't blame it on this. They are misusing this. Learn this for yourself so you can take the same book back and beat them to death with it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Psalms 83 and verse 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel to get against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones.
And have consulted against thy hidden ones. How do you hide a people? You hide a people when you take their identity away from them. We are Negroes. Where Negroes come from? Everybody else is referred to by a country off a continent. Where's the country Negro? Where's the country black? Africa is a continent and America is a continent, but we both continents. The Gentile is a European, but he's also a German, or either he's also an Italian, or either he's also a Greek or a Spaniard.
Frenchman.
But we 2 continents. So what we? Chicago, Mississippi, and Arkansas? We was only there for 300 and some years. What about before then? Go ahead on and read. Verse 4.
They have said, come and let us cut them off from being the nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
These are these nations who want to cut us off of being a nation, that the name of Israel be no more in remembrance, because we are special people, above all people. And the true and living God is our God.
Yes, sir.
So you know what? These people have turned their back on their God. So he out of the way. Now the only thing we got to do is get rid of them. Creation is ours. Go ahead on and read.
For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom.
Edom. You don't even hear about them no more. Edom then turned into the Jew as of 70 AD. Go ahead.
And the Ishmaelites.
That's the Arabs. And they still fighting to this day. Why? Because the Romans took us out in 70 AD. Somewhere around 135, after Esau moved in our land and we gone, they think that they're going to kick against the Romans. Then the Romans come and slaughter them. You heard about Masada. That wasn't us. That was Esau. And that's when the Romans knocked Herod off. And after 135 AD, those who escaped Rome, they came over to the Mediterranean world following us. The land is desolate. The Arabs say, ain't nobody home. I guess we'll take it. How the world the Dome of the Rock get there, where our temple used to be at? Our temple got destroyed because the Romans destroyed it. Esau ain't never built nothing there. Esau gone, so the Arabs move in. Now the Arabs done had that land ever since the 7th century because the true inhabitants of the land is gone, right? Now, after Esau following us, because they getting the punishment that we should get because they got our identity, start to putting a stranglehold on Europe because they possess the riches. They living in the mansions in Germany. And the Germans is digging the ditches. They got the businesses in Germany, and the Germans is shining shoes and selling newspapers. And Hitler say, no, this ain't right. Hitler geeked them people up. So we got to get these people out of here. The rich ones, we ain't going to kill you, but you leaving your money and your art and your gold here, and you can go back home. The poor ones, we gassing y'all. They lived in ghettos in Germany. Who live in a ghetto other than us? Other people, they don't call their poor areas ghettos. They might be slums or something, but the only people who live in the ghetto is them and us. Okay? So now, in 1948, the United Nations get together and say, we got to do something with these people, these Edomites, right? So what did they do? They go back and they put Israel or Esau back in Jerusalem. The Palestinians like, this is ours. But the United Nations said, we got tired of these people over here with us. We send them back home, right? And they've been fighting ever since. How do Esau beat the Palestinians in that 6-day war of 1948? Because they got the power of the United Nations behind them. And every president that presides over the United States is a friend of who? Israel. And you know how they're a friend of Israel? If anybody come over there to mess with y'all, we will help you out militarily. Esau said, okay, we'll take the deal. I tell you what, London, you keep our money. The House of Rothschilds. That's the real Wall Street over there in London. That's where all the money is over there. And then they got New York, right? New York ain't nothing compared to London, right? So I tell you what, they in the midst of all their enemies. If these Arabs or if these Egyptians or anybody come and mess with us, we want the military here and we want our money. Okay. But as long as we're living in peace, Y'all can use our money. And that's how we got Hollywood. That's why we got all the news and everything else. Gentiles ain't got no money. That's Esau's money. And Esau's letting the Gentiles use it. And Esau said, tell you what, keep an eye on them people whose identity we done stole. Because it's costing them a whole lot of money to keep us hid.
Yes, sir.
And we don't even consider it. Look here, we live on prime real estate in every metropolitan city in every country of the United States, right? Why? Because this is where Edom used to live at. Montgomery Wards gave us credit, right? Edom. Goldblatt's gave us credit. Edom. Sears went in business with Roebuck, who was one of us. Edom and us. We boats. Y'all don't even remember places like that probably. Order and Shane, when you go to rent your apartment. Draper and Kramer. All of these relatives, that's all Edom. The other people ain't gonna rent to you. They moved out to the suburbs to get away from you. And then after they killed Kennedy and King, and you start burning down 43rd and 47th and all them, they went to Skokie and Niles. Now you ain't got nothing. And after you done messed up enough, the Gentiles ain't gonna come and invest until they got enough parts of land that they can come and rebuild, get there, and then price you out of the market. Now you stuck in swamp land and no man's land, and you can't even come back to where you was born at. We grew up at the lake on 31st Street. Go over there now. McCormick Place. All that was ours. You can't even go downtown no more. You can't even afford to go and do the places that you used to do when you was growing up. But this is what the Bible say concerning us. Let's go into the book of Obadiah, and let's see what the Lord say about Edom. Obadiah. We're almost done. Obadiah don't have any chapters. It's just one book. So we're going to Obadiah. And when we get to Obadiah, we're going to start reading at verse 1. Obadiah, verse 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
The vision of Obadiah. Thus said the Lord God concerning Edom.
This is what God is saying concerning Edom. Go ahead.
We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, but thou art greatly despised.
Edom, I done made you small among the nations, and you are greatly despised. Everybody don't like them. And they don't like them because of their finance, because they got the money. They got the real money. Skip down to verse 10 and go ahead.
For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever.
Because of what you done did to your brother Jacob down through the years, shame is going to cover you, and you're going to be cut off forever. Go ahead on and read.
And the day that thou stoodest on the other side, and the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou was as one of them.
That was when the Romans did this in 70 AD. You was just there with the Romans because Herod was not an Israelite. He was an Idumean.
Yes, sir.
He was a puppet of Rome. Rome put him up to be the governor of Judea. And when they came and took us out, any of us who was escaped, Esau was right there and said, there go one of them over there. You missed him. There go another one hiding over there. You missed him. Come and get them all. So that once I use y'all Romans to get them out of the land, I can get back what I think is mine. Because they're going to say that we stole the birthright when Esau forgot. He sold it to us. Go ahead on and read.
But thou shouldest have not looked on the day of thy brother in the day that he became a stranger. Neither should thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Neither should thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress.
You know, like when you got a sibling and they do something wrong and mom or dad is getting ready to get them, you know, the brothers and sisters snickering because their brother and sister getting a whooping, and you turn around and get a whooping. This is what the Lord telling you about Edom. Edom, when I was chastising Israel, you shouldn't have been, you know, rejoicing over their calamity. You shouldn't have even been over there with your hand in their business. Now, because you did that, The same hand that slapped your brother getting ready to come and slap you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead on and read.
Thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity.
You shouldn't have came and took their land in the day of their calamity. Go ahead.
Yea, thou shouldest not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity.
You should not have taken their identity and their history in the day of their calamity. Because in 70 AD, the year of our calamity, that's the day that you disappeared off the map. Go ahead on and read.
Neither shouldst thou have stood in the crossway to cut off his that did escape. Neither should thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. For the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathen.
The day of the Lord's return is near upon all nations. Go ahead.
As thou hast done it,
as you hast done Esau to your brother,
shall it be done unto thee.
It's going to be done unto you. Go ahead.
Thy reward shall return upon thine own head.
What you have done to your brother, that is going to come back on your own head. Let's go to our last slide. Bring me my last slide, my brothers. Back down in the control room. Here we go. Look at this here. We are 3,748 years old as a people. That's how old we are as a people. 2,836 years of those 3,748 years is captivity as a people. We was in captivity 400 years in Egypt, 490 years in Babylon, and it's been 1,946 years since 70 AD. Out of our 3,748 years of existence as a people, we have only experienced 912 years of total freedom. We don't know what it's like to be free. All we know is slavery. All we know is oppression. And you want to know why we like we are? Because somebody had their foot in our neck all our life. Let's go into Jeremiah chapter 2. We got about 3 places after this, short. Jeremiah chapter 2. Because of all of this slavery that we have been going through as a people, and the only reason why we've been going through it, because we put ourselves in this position because we won't serve the Lord. This is what this book is about. This is what the prophets is telling us down through the generations. Turn from your evil ways and come back to me. Stop doing it, and I won't have to continue to do this to you. Yeah, I'm using the white man to do this to you, but the white man ain't doing this because this is what he want to do. I told you I was going to provoke you to jealousy with a foolish nation. You even say these people stupid. But they so stupid, they ruling over you. They scared of you. And you know they scared of you, but they still rule you. How is that? You stronger than them, and they know you stronger than them. Every time that they give you a break, and you just use sports as an example. Quarterback, prize, white position in football. Blacks taking it over. Blacks just about took baseball, and that was their American pastime. Abner Doubleday made basketball. And look what Stephen Curry doing to the game. And now we after hockey. So what they do, they go into ownership. If I could pay Michael Jordan $30 million in 1 year, and it's still 11 more people that I got to pay, how much money am I making? You think they stupid? I ain't got to run up and down the court and suffer all these injuries. Y'all go ahead on and entertain me. This is what you want. I'm making the real money. If I can pay one man that kind of money, and I still got 11 more people I got to pay, how much money do you think I'm making? Jeremiah chapter 2. See, these are just some of the things we got to think about. Jeremiah chapter 2. And we're going to pick it up at verse 10. Look at what the Lord say here. Jeremiah 2 and 10. Go ahead.
For pass over the isles of Shittim, and see, and send it to Kedar, and consider diligently, and see if there be such a thing.
So he's telling you to go from coast to coast and pay attention to what you're looking at and consider diligently. Go ahead.
Have a nation changed their gods, which are no gods?
Has any other nation changed their gods? These nations are still serving paganism. Go ahead.
But my people have changed their glory for that which is doeth not profit.
But we didn't turn our glory, which is the true and living God, into something that don't profit. Go ahead on and read.
Be astonished, O ye heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid. Be ye very desolate, saith the Lord. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of the living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water.
We didn't turn our back on the true and living God, and we didn't got a cup with a hole in the bottom trying to get some water that won't hold no water. Go ahead on and read.
Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled?
You see what he asking? Are we a servant? Are we a homeborn slave? Why are we spoiled? 912 years of freedom out of 3,748 years of existence. It looked like we're a homeborn slave, ain't it? Why are we spoiled? Because we hard-headed. We won't listen to the Lord. Let's go into Daniel chapter 9. Daniel chapter 9. Daniel chapter 9 and verse 7. Daniel 9, and we're going to pick it up at verse 7. Look at what Daniel say here. Daniel 9 and verse 7. All right, my brother, go ahead.
O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee.
Righteousness belongeth unto God because he ain't did nothing wrong. Go ahead.
But unto us confusion of faces.
But to us belong confusion of faces. Go ahead.
As at this day to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven them.
You see who drove us away? God did. That's why you got to understand that this thing is bigger than us. It's more than what meets the eye. God is still ruling in the kingdom of men. Okay? Go ahead.
Because of their trespasses that they have trespassed against me.
Because of our sin that we have sinned against him. Go ahead.
O Lord, to us belongeth confusion of faces, to our kings.
To our kings that we didn't even know we had.
To our princes.
To our princes, we ain't know we had none of them.
And to our fathers.
And to our forefathers that we don't even know nothing about. Our forefathers was Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, Sojourner Truth, Nat Turner, Harry Tubman, and some more. But we don't know about Solomon. We don't know about Joshua, the greatest general that ever lived. We don't know about the prophet that we're reading about. We don't even know Jesus, the true and living God who was one of us when he manifested in the flesh. Go ahead on and read.
Because we have sinned against thee.
Because we have sinned against him and we're spiritually blind now. Go ahead.
To the Lord our God belong mercies and forgiveness, though we have rebelled against him.
Go ahead.
Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our God.
And when did we hear the voice of the Lord our God? Through his prophets.
Yes, sir.
Because he sent all the prophets. He called the prophets holy men of God that spake as they was moved by the Holy Ghost. When you read the prophets, ain't none of them. Jeremiah ain't say, listen to me. Isaiah ain't told you to listen to him. Daniel ain't told you to listen to him. All of them start off by saying, thus saith the Lord. But we wouldn't walk in his ways and we wouldn't obey his voice. Go ahead.
To walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants, the prophets.
Go ahead.
Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. Therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him.
And you want to know the curse? Go and read the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy. And everything starting from verse 16 to verse 64 is the curse. And every one of them is on us, and is on us because we would not listen to the voice of the Lord our God. Go ahead to verse 12.
And he hath confirmed his words, which he spake against us, and against our judges that judge us, by bringing upon us a great evil. For under the whole heaven have not been done as have been done unto Jerusalem.
You see what the book say? Under the whole heaven have not happened to nobody on the earth as what has happened to us as a people. We are the absolute only people in the world that is not referred to by a country off a continent. And we don't even pay that no attention. We proud to be black. I see a lot of people out here today with black on. And I look at your face and I look at your clothes, they don't match. I don't know what Negro is. Africa was named after an Italian, and America was named after a Spaniard. So who am I? Where did I come from? Ain't nothing happened to nobody else as to what has happened to us. Go ahead on and read.
As it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil has come upon us, yet made we not our prayer before the Lord, our God, and that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth.
After all of what we go through, we still ain't turned to the Lord. We looking for Donald Trump now, or maybe Hillary Clinton. We looked for Obama. Before then, we looked for Hillary's husband, Bill. We knew the Bushes didn't have nothing for us. And we missed Kennedy like crazy. Come on, give us a break. Where is Jesus?
Yes, sir.
Oh, he that's the white man's God. Forget him. But you don't know this book. Jesus looked just like you. And he waiting on you to turn back to him so he could do to this country and the rest of the world like what he did to Egypt.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He said when he come back, I'm going to shake the world.
Yes, sir.
I guess that's where Ali got that from. When Ali knocked out George, he said, I shook up the world. No, you didn't. You just shook up George Foreman. Jesus said he said the earth is going to rock to and fro like a drunkard.
Yes, sir.
You know how you walk when you drink too much? That's how the earth gonna wobble. And it ain't that record. Come on, let me see you wobble, wobble, wobble. Nah. That's why he said you're gonna have earthquakes in diverse places.
Yes, sir.
Because the Lord is getting ready to shake up the world
Yes,
to bring back his people from where he done scattered them. But guess what? When I bring you back and you ain't used the talents that I gave you in the land, I'm going to have something for you. You see that fire over there? You like the barbecue? Go get on the grill. Because I'm going to cook you. We got talent. We got wisdom and we got knowledge, and it's all in this book. And if we don't come to understand it and use it when he comes, and he'll be here soon, we don't want to see him. Because we ain't going to want what he's going to have for us if we don't have nothing to present him. Let's go into St. Matthew, the 5th chapter. Look at what he say here. St. Matthew chapter 5. St. Matthew chapter 5. Look at what he say here. St. Matthew 5 and verse 14. St. Matthew 5 and 14. All right, my brother, go ahead.
Ye are the light of the world.
You are the light of the world. Go ahead.
A city that's set on the hill cannot be hid. Neither do a man light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and to give of light unto all that are in the house.
Go ahead.
Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven.
This is what we're supposed to do. Let our light as a nation of people shine amongst the nations that we are amongst. And when they look at us as the kings that we are, they're going to want to know where y'all get this from. And then you introduce them to Jesus.
Yes, sir.
And then God will not be only the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He will be the God of the whole world then. He waiting on us to bring the rest of our brothers to him. But instead of bringing our brothers to him, we ran from him to go with them. And they ain't got nothing. Let's go to Zechariah. Zechariah 8. We got one place after this. Zechariah 8. Zechariah 8. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Zechariah 8 and 1. All right, my brother, go ahead.
Again, the word of the Lord of hosts came to me, saying.
Look at how Zechariah start off. Again, the word of the Lord of hosts came to me. This ain't Zechariah talking. He telling you what the Lord said. Go ahead.
Thus said the Lord of hosts, I was jealous for Zion with great jealousy, and I was jealous for her with great fury. Thus saith the Lord, I return unto Zion and will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem shall be a city, shall be called a city of truth, and the mount of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, there shall yet old men and old women dwell in the streets of Jerusalem, and every man with his staff in his hand for very age. And the streets of the city shall be full of boys and girls playing in the streets thereof. Thus said the Lord of hosts, if it be marvelous in the eyes of the remnant of this people in these days, should it also be marvelous in mine eyes, said the Lord of hosts?
You see what the Lord say? When I bring y'all back home, old men and old women is going to be walking in the streets of Jerusalem. Young boys and young girls are going to be playing in the streets of Jerusalem. And if it looks like it's going to be a marvelous sight in your eye, what do you think the Lord says it's going to look like in my eye?
Yes, sir.
After all these years, because this is what I've been wanting. Go ahead on and read.
Thus said the Lord of hosts, behold, I will save my people from the east country and from the west country, and I will bring them, and they shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God, in truth and in righteousness. Thus said the Lord of hosts, let your hands be strong, ye that hear in these days these words by the mouth of the prophets, which were in the day that the foundation of the house of the Lord was hosts was laid, that the temple might be built. For before these days there was no hire for man.
There ain't no hire for man right now, is it? Go ahead.
No any hire for beast.
Ain't no hire for beast.
Neither was there any peace to him that went out or came in because of the affliction.
We ain't got no peace in the streets. Because of the affliction of my people. Go ahead.
For I set all men every one against his neighbor.
Go ahead.
But now I will not be unto the residue of this people at the former days, said the Lord of hosts.
He said, but now I ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna change. Go ahead.
For the seed shall be prosperous, the vine shall give her fruit, and the ground shall give her increase, and the heavens shall give their dew. And I will call the remnant of this people to possess all these things.
A remnant of this people, the small portion that's left, I'm going to allow them to possess all things. Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass that as you were a curse among the heathen, O house of Judah, the house of Israel, so will I save you, and ye shall be a blessing. Fear not, but let your hands be strong.
Just like we was a curse, the Lord is going to flip the script, and we're going to become a blessing. Go ahead.
For thus said the Lord of hosts, as I thought to punish you when your father provoked me to wrath, said the Lord of hosts, and I repented not. So again have I thought in these days to do well unto Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Fear ye not. These are the things that you shall do.
Now, I'm getting ready to change, and just like I done beat you up and did all these evil things to you, I'm going to do well to you. But when I do well to you, this is what I want you to do. Go ahead.
Speak ye every man the truth to his neighbor.
Speak the truth to your neighbor. Stop lying. Go ahead.
Execute the judgment of truth and peace in your gates.
Execute the judgment of truth and peace in your dwellings. Go ahead.
And let none of you imagine evil in your hearts against his neighbor, and love no false oath. For all these are things that I hate, saith the Lord.
Stop doing these things that I don't like. Go ahead.
And the word of the Lord of hosts came unto me, saying.
And the word of the Lord of hosts. Okay, so this is what we got to do. We got to stop being evil. We got to be truthful, and we got to not like false oaths, lying and deceiving and scheming and going after money. We got to keep the commandments of God and be peaceful. Let's go to our last place. Let's go to 1 Corinthians, the second chapter. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. And look at what the Lord say here. Because we done seen some pretty marvelous stuff here, ain't we? We done seen riches, and we done seen honor in the old days. And we done seen some pretty good things in our lifetime as far as riches and stuff go, right? But look at what the Lord say here. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, we're going to read one verse, verse 9. 1 Corinthians 2 and verse 9. All right, my brother, go ahead.
But as it is written, I have not seen, nor ear heard.
As it is written, your eyes have not seen, neither have your ears heard. Go ahead.
Neither have entered into the heart of man.
Neither have it entered into your mind. What?
The things which God has prepared for them that love him.
The things that God has prepared for them that love him. You talking about streets of gold. You ain't walking on concrete and grass and dirt no more. You walking on streets of gold. You ain't worried about no polluted water. You talking about water that can give life. You ain't going to the pet store to buy no birds and monkeys and dogs. You're going to be able to ride a horse when you want to. You're going to be able to swim with a shark and don't have to worry about him biting you. You're going to be able to play with a gorilla, a snake, or whatever you want to, and you ain't got to worry about it. Your kids can go outside, and you ain't got to worry about nobody snatching. You can do whatever you want to, and if you don't like the weather, you can tell the sun, heat it up a little bit. Joshua told him to stop, and it stopped, didn't it? What did the Lord say? With a little bit of faith, faith of a mustard seed,
yes,
you can cast the mountain into the ocean, right?
Yes, sir.
Get out of my way. This is what the Lord has in store for them who wait on him. I thank you for your time, and I hope somebody got the picture of what life was like for us when we were kings.